السلام عليكم ورحمة الله يا أهل اليوتيوب. Can you hear me and can you see me يا شيخ؟ Both clear. Let's start inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. I hope that you are all safe, healthy, and enjoying these blessed times during the 10 or 9 days of the Hijjah, best of days. We have Walaikum Salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It has been a while since we last went live on YouTube or went live anywhere. Allah al-Musta'an. عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته جميعا. Tonight we are talking about so many different things, and I hope that we can finish in 40 minutes so that we do not torture Al-Shaykh Al-Fadil, the admin, with us. And let's start talking about the most important things. I believe these upcoming courses that we've announced on the website and the Facebook page and everywhere else where they announce these things. I received a couple of questions that I answered privately on students who contacted me, and other questions from other people too, and the admin of the Facebook page made me answer a couple of questions, but apparently there is a pattern, something that is repeated. I didn't pay attention to this, and if I paid attention earlier, I would have gone live to clarify these things. Now we are offering two courses, one on the biography of Imam Ahmed, the life of Imam Ahmed, the virtues of Imam Ahmed radiyallahu anhu, Manaqib Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, one of the greatest books of Al-Manaqib, one of the greatest books of the virtues of a scholar authored in a madhab. I read the other books of Al-Bayhaqi and even different books, different styles. I still find Ibn al-Jawzi's book on the virtues of Ahmed ibn Hanbal the best. But this cannot. I'm still accused of taking sides. I cannot. I cannot be free of this accusation because I'm Hanbali. However, there are aspects of al-ilm that we can all agree on when we talk about the virtues of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal by Shaykh al-Hafiz al-Muhaddith Abi al-Faraj ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah. And this takes us to the most important point about this book. It is a book of al-Hadith after all, but there is a specific topic that it tackles, which is the life of Ahmed ibn Hanbal, the hardship of Ahmed ibn Hanbal, the habits of Ahmed ibn Hanbal, and other things that you need to know about Ahmed ibn Hanbal radiyallahu anhu. What will be foregrounded in this course is Ahmed ibn Hanbal radiyallahu anhu, but you will learn a lot about how these things reached us. A book authored by a scholar who belongs to the 6th century, probably. Yes, yani most of his life, yes, or all of his life. Yes, all of his life, 6th century. And it is still the best source from which you learn Ahmed ibn Hanbal's life and Ahmed ibn Hanbal's mihna, the mihna of Khalq al-Quran that Ahmed bin Hanbal went through cannot be, I cannot teach you about al-mihna without referring to the book of al-Manaqib. Although there were books from the students of Ahmed bin Hanbal himself, his students, direct students of Ahmed bin Hanbal, authored books of a similar style to talk about the mihna of Ahmed bin Hanbal radiyallahu anhu. Yet still, Abu al-Faraj ibn al-Jawzi's book is the best source, as I said. Now you are reading a book of Hadith. This is backgrounded. You have asanid. You have to consider this. You see, there are stories and there are things that you will learn from Ahmad's life. If you are not Hanbali, you will enjoy. If you are Hanbali, you will learn. And if you are not Hanbali, you will still have a chance to learn. But I cannot understand how a Hanbali who studied al-Hadith and who studied al-Fiqh al-Hanbali, we can also add al-Aqaid al-Hanbaliyya, how can a person miss reading the manaqib of Ahmad bin Hanbal, which will show him the historical background of the fiqhi ruling that he memorizes, the historical context of the historical, social, and sometimes if he has some analytical skills, the psychological context of the fiqhi ruling that he studies, the principle of usul al-hadith that he studies, the qaida in al-aqaid that he studies, وهكذا. That's why we need to teach this and we need to learn this. However, the dominant narrative doesn't really celebrate this type of books. The dominant narrative of scholars, the narrative of scholars, people who call themselves scholars, who teach al-ilm, who raise this banner of al-ilm wal-ulama among Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they do not celebrate these ulum al-tarikh, as we call them. Biographies, or biography is history. طبعا, definitely, the claim of someone who says history is a very important part of the Islamic studies is much stronger than the claim of the one who says, let's focus more on the what we call علوم المقاصد وعلوم الوسائل. يعني let's focus more on الفقه والحديث, المنطق والنحو والصرف وعلوم العربية. Yes, let's focus on these علوم. I understand that we have to focus on these علوم, but focusing on these علوم doesn't necessarily solve the problems that people face in their real lives when they encounter some Wahhabi, when they encounter some mubtadi'. Wahhabi is a mubtadi', يعني do not misunderstand what I'm saying. خلاص, when they encounter people who belong to different sects from Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, when a Hanbali encounters an Ash'ari who is being extreme, okay, or being oppressive, or being violent in his positions, I do not even need to seek evidence, but please go read Muqaddimat Ibn Khaldun, the introduction of Ibn Khaldun to his book of history. Yes, and it has been translated so many times, and you can read any translation or even like a summary of the book would be sufficient to make my point, to support my claim that history is one of the very important ulum that you have to study. We are not offering history now. We are not going to study طبقات الحنابلة, although it's very important to study طبقات الحنابلة. يعني most of الحنابلة, if they just study a book like السحب الوابلة, it will solve a lot of their problems. السحب الوابلة على ضرائح الحنابلة, جعلنا الله وإياكم منهم, will solve your problem of being hesitant about whether الوهابية are Hanabila or not, whether قرن الشيطان Ibn Abdul Wahhab was Hanbali or not. It will provide you with an answer that tells you at least that there is one Hanbali position, as if there is another, يعني. خلاص. But at least it will tell you that there is one Hanbali authentic position that existed since the times of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab himself, that said he was never a Hanbali. So books of history solve a lot of problems. Now we are not just studying a book of history, a book of history that provides context for the Hanbali ulum. Actually, it provides context for the Islamic ulum. And it's written by a muhaddith according to the laws and principles of ulum al-hadith. This is special. You can find the same thing in al-Bayhaqi, you can find the same thing in other books, but I have never seen it done in an accurate way like this by anyone else other than Shaykh al-Hafiz Abu al-Faraj ibn al-Jawz. خلاص. This justifies our study of this book. It's not just to read about the great seerah or the great story of Imam Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah Ahmed Hanbal radiyallahu anhu. This might be simple. This is simple. I do not find it difficult. The other book is really difficult, and I should have paid attention to this from the very beginning. Since I decided to teach it, I should have told people about it. Bahr al-Dam is a book of al-Jarh al-Ta'dil. The title is a little bit strange, and it's a strong title, The Sea of Blood, yes. But it has an indication. Al-Jarh al-Ta'dil, if you praise a narrator or you criticize the religion of narrator, his religiousness or his memorization or his ability to render what he heard or received from his shuyukh, you will be talking about people. Guess what? Talking about people is not easy. Talking about people can be considered or regarded as backbiting, صحيح? Or oppression, or even worse, accusation, false accusation. خلاص. This in a different context might require al-hadd, and you might be punished. Please, when I say these things, I have been away from YouTube for a while now. When I say these things, I do not expect you to ask me a question like, and what is the ruling of doing so and so? Yani you are missing the whole point. I'm not teaching you al-fiqh right now. You are missing the whole point. I'm telling you, sometimes when you talk about others in a certain fashion, this leads to being punished by hadd. Yani the judge gives you a very severe punishment that will harm you physically. Yes? I hope you understand the concept itself, regardless of any details that might be mentioned in the books of fiqh. That's why it's called the Sea of Blood, because you're not going to swim in a beautiful, lovely place where you have the best time of your life. This is a necessity, and it has to be confined to this, that it's a necessity. That's why it's a sea of blood. طيب. Now we have a Wahhabi problem. They study the same principles of ulum al-hadith that we study, but they do not teach them accurately because they lack the tools. Jamil. And they are obsessed with التصحيح والتضعيف, grading the hadith, to the extent that their a'imma or their imam cuts the book of hadith into two halves just to distinguish between what he considers authentic and what he considers weak or rejected. I will come to the questions after finishing, inshallah. I will not take, inshallah, a lot of time. Yes. جزاكم خير. This is based on الرجال, based on علم الرجال. Literally it means the science of men. What is the science of men? يعني الجرح والتعديل. Is this narrator trusted or not? الله يحفظكم ويبارك فيكم. جزاكم الله خير. Is this narrator trusted or not? Is this narrator better than the other narrator or not? طب this narrator in his narration from his Shaykh X, or him in his narration from his Shaykh Y. And this comes with a whole new set of terminology. It's not usually studied in a detailed way in علم أصول الحديث. نعم. So there is this theoretical part that you study. علوم الحديث are 7 or 8 or even more. So one of them is أصول الحديث, these principles of hadith. What is الحديث الصحيح? What is the authentic hadith? What is the حسن hadith? What is الشاذ? What is المنكر? What is العلة, the hidden deficiency? What is المتصل? What is المسند? To know the terminology, this is one thing. To know the philosophy, this is another thing. Can be done in the same book, the book of Usul al-Hadith. Probably a book after the first book. The first book just introduces you to the whole world of Ulum al-Hadith. And then you see that in practice, when you read Musnad al-Imam Ahmed, when I'm talking about Musnad al-Imam Ahmed because I'm Hanbali, but when you read any Hadith book, خلاص, not al-Bukhari or Muslim, but even al-Bukhari or Muslim, not necessarily Bukhari or Muslim, but even al-Bukhari or Muslim, you see that these narrators, you studied things about them, not about Ibn al-Munkadir and Ibn Dinar, Amr ibn Dinar or so, not about these people in particular, but about these narrators in general. But you haven't studied much and you haven't really practiced. So how do you practice? Usually Salafiyya, Al-Wahhabiyya, they do not sit to practice in a dars. They do not usually sit to practice in a dars. And if they practice, they deal with these principles that they studied. And even the applications of scholars like Shaykh al-Islam ibn Hajar in Tahdhib al-Tahzib and in Taqrib al-Tahzib wa al-Hafiz al-Dhahabi and others. وأحمد بن حنبل والبخاري, and in their books كتب العلل وكذا, they deal with these principles that they find in these books in a very simple, like it's too simple, in a very, I won't use the word naive, yes, as if they have just studied al-ilm, يعني they started yesterday or something, because they lack a shuyukh and they lack al-isnad and they lack the tools to teach al-ilm in general, and because they focus all their studies on one ilm, which deprives them of the necessary tools that are required for al-ilm in general, even if it's the ilm of al-kufr, yes, and certain tools that are required for ulum al-din, din al-Islam. نعم. You can see that things developed until we started with a book called Al-Kamal, then تهذيب الكمال للحافظ المزي. شوف الحافظ المقدسي, شوف الحافظ المزي worked on a book and called it تهذيب الكمال. Then Shaykh al-Islam ibn Hajar and others worked on تهذيب الكمال, and you have the result is تهذيب التهذيب, تذهيب التهذيب, إكمال تهذيب كمال, وهكذا. And then you have التقريب, تقريب تهذيب, تهذيب الكمال. The name of the narrator, something about his like his generation, or the era in the era in which he was alive or so. And then the grade or the judgment or the ruling or so. Thiqah, trusted. One word, maybe two words, maybe more than this, but this is rare. So one volume has everything about all the narrators of the 6 books. Now, can we do this, but in a study that is focused on Ahmed ibn Hanbal's opinions, if you are Hanbali? This is the Sea of Blood by Ibn Abdul Hadi. You see? And it allows you to practice al-ijtihad in the dars, which the purpose of the dars, that you practice al-ijtihad in the dars, so that you, first of all, see that it's difficult, see that you do not always get it right. As long as you study the theory with me, but you go practice on your own, we are doomed. Come practice al-ijtihad with us in the dars. Not a word will escape the boundaries of the dars. So that we give you the chance on social media to tell people about what you ate yesterday, instead of telling them about the narrator that you investigated yesterday and that you reached the huge result of the 14th or the 15th of the 15th centuries or the 14th centuries of Islam, the huge result that based on my investigation on this narrator, we should pray 4 prayers instead of 5. Exaggeration, but the implementation of exaggeration here is to satirize certain practices that we see on social media. So it makes you work. It's as if we have a tutorial. خلاص, I attended it's called the Alsun languages, or tongues languages. We had tutorials for the courses of translation. 2 lectures and 1 tutorial, so that you practice on your own while being given more freedom after learning in the lectures the techniques that you need to have in mind. That's why we need to study about these narrators. This answers the questions I received from Hassan, from the Facebook admin, and even more. I added a lot of things that no one asked me about. If you have any questions, keep sending your questions. I will read them at the end. I'm not here to answer fiqhi questions, okay? Please. I do not feel ready to answer fiqhi questions. I need to prepare myself if I'm answering fiqhi questions. I'm not المدرسة الحنبلية. If المدرسة الحنبلية were if we had the Wahhabi techniques, we might have offered fast fatwa, like fast food fatwa, quick fatawa, quick. What do you want to know about the deen? Quick, I will do it, even if I'm asleep. This needs some preparation. I'm not going to answer fiqhi questions. But if you have questions about what I'm talking about al-ilm, this takes us to a very important thing that I wanted to say. I want you to seek guidance about what to study. You have the right to tell us, I've studied so and so. Would you recommend that I study this now? Send these questions. Lately, I have begun to appreciate the value of these questions. After seeing what certain students here in Egypt did, I feel that it has always been important to do so, but I never paid attention to it. Yes? So, if you want to ask us about what we believe in, people's freedom in what they want to study, this is the old-fashioned way of seeking al-ilm. You choose the dars and the sheikh you want. and the level you want, but if you make a mistake, it will be costly. Yes? A mistake in choosing what you want. So what you want doesn't really reflect your desires. It reflects that you have a religious responsibility and that you are obliged to have al-ihsan in choosing what you study. Do not be like some of the students from the States and other European countries who came to me to study Rawd al-Murbi', and in certain durus, they finished the dars with me. I finished the dars 2 hours. They said, in this dars, we didn't get one word. The previous dars, they got everything. It was easier. I didn't increase the level of the dars. I just maintained one level in every dars. But it happens that this part is, because of the book, is more complicated than the previous one. So they chose the wrong book from the beginning and they went against my recommendation, but I followed them anyways to show them in a practical way, because otherwise they are not going to be convinced. I do not want you to go through this. Send us on, I'm not sure if we have something on the website, but do not, keep the website for what it's designed to do. Send messages to our Facebook page asking for advice, like the advising center in a university or something. I have studied this. What do you recommend next? Especially that we offer recorded classes, and I'm not happy with it, but I learned to deal with it because it has been a necessity. But let's talk more about what I like, which is the live classes in which I have interaction with al-mashayikh or with the students. وهكذا. Yes, please, if you do not know, ask someone. Ask one of our senior mashayikh if you know them. If they do not know, they will tell you, okay, we need to ask first before providing you with an answer. وهكذا. Maybe this is the last thing I have, because I do not want to exceed the 40 minutes. The last thing I have is, I have been talking a lot in the durus about what I call the Wahhabi culture. And because of globalization, the Wahhabi culture is universal. It exists everywhere, as if it has become a part of any religious practice, even if this religious practice is Ash'ari, Maturidi, sometimes even Shi'i, but Shia are not the best people from the very beginning. They in some aspects they are even worse than al-Wahhabiyya. نعم. طبعا for our Wahhabi ear, I am saying things that are kufr, shirk, ridda, the whole package. One of my students told me, they would an Egyptian student, he likes to joke. He told me, this is what? This is kufr. iPhone Pro Max? He said this is kufr Pro Max or something like this. Yeah. يا مشايخ, the Wahhabi culture, sometimes you can see it even among Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. What do I mean by the Wahhabi culture? It's this way of thinking about general issues. You are protected as long as we have a book that teaches you Usul al-Din, for instance. So in Usul al-Din, you will never have the Wahhabi position in your mind or in your heart. You'll be protected against it. But in the rest of your life, you are acting as a Wahhabi. Religion is a very important aspect, and it's foregrounded, and you deal with a lot of things from a religious perspective, and these things are not necessarily determined by al-fiqh, al-aqaid, al-adab. However, التصوف can solve a lot of our problems. التصوف, al-adab wa tasawuf, one thing after all. We can solve our problems, but maybe you are Ash'ari but you are not Sufi, or you are trying to be. But التصوف is limited to the practices that you have in your zawiyah, your masjid with your shaykh, وهكذا. I believe this is a little bit harsh, but I need to say it. Some of our mashayikh say, I'll try to make it lighter than how they say it. They say that even actors and like actresses, people who have nothing to do with religion, their way of thinking about religion is a Wahhabi way. Worse than this, the people's way of thinking about things that are not religious is a Wahhabi way. What is the alternative culture then? As I said in maybe in the last dars or something, tonight I believe in not sure الصواعق الإلهية في الرد على الوهابية. I said طيب students who come from Western backgrounds, so students who come from what I call شبه الجزيرة الهندية, the subcontinent, Pakistan, India, they have this more than anyone else. But this is a generalization, and you have to understand that it is a generalization. So it's inaccurate. But this is my experience. People who come from Europe are better. People who come from the States, يعني, people who come from Canada sometimes and sometimes. My students here, maybe this is the worst I have ever seen. خلاص? Maybe, I'm not sure. My students here in Egypt, yeah. Yes? From which perspective? The perspective of being affected by this culture. The Wahhabi culture that has become a part of everyone's religion. يعني I'm afraid to say even the Christians here. خلاص? Even the Christians here in our country. And if you read anything about Orientalism, you will understand that religion and culture, they can never be seen as going into separate ways, and this is obvious, I believe. If it's not, please read more on the topic of Orientalism. What should we do to avoid this, to avoid being affected by the Wahhabi culture? Because we have the privilege, not myself, but you have the privilege of living in countries in which this culture is not as dominant as it is in an Islamic country. طبعا it's not, يعني living in an Islamic country in general is better. You get to hear the adhan, خلاص. Or you were used to hearing the adhan. يعني Allah المستعان. What I'm saying is, in a non-Muslim country, the Wahhabi culture might not be dominant. طبعا the culture of al-kuffar in this country, and al-kuffar is not here an insult, it's their reality. The culture of al-kuffar is not necessarily good. But the problem with the Wahhabi culture is that it's religious. So you might not always be able to filter what is unwanted. But if they try to force something like Christmas on you, because it's a cultural thing, you are aware that this is not Islam, even if you do it. At least as a scholar or a student of knowledge. And I'm not talking about laymen. I'm talking about us, students of knowledge, or people who at least try to become students of knowledge. So the tree, the Christmas tree, as a symbolic or as a cultural symbol, this cannot easily be forced on you. But there are a lot of Wahhabi aspects that can be easily forced on you, and they are not as easy as something like a tree that you see and you can touch. لا, certain ideas and ways of thinking. Wallahu al-musta'an. How do we solve this problem We have to read in other disciplines. يعني in your free time, after taking, طبعا I'm talking about utopia now, right? يعني some people will say we do not even spend 2 hours studying a day. You should be studying خلاص every day. But maybe weekly you should dedicate some time to reading something from a different discipline. Sociology, psychology, history, not necessarily authored by Muslims. So that you get the chance to think always in a critical thinking. This is what we need to have, صح? Critical thinking. But critical thinking in normal situations of your life, not critical thinking while analyzing the book. This is great if you have critical thinking while analyzing the book of al-fiqh or the book of al-tawheed or so. This is great. But now in the rest of your life and your theoretical study, معلش, what I'm saying is a necessity for al-ilm actually. I'm not coming to say let's become better people. What I'm saying is let's enhance what we produce in al-ilm. You will interact with people's reality while having this Wahhabi way of thinking, while having this Wahhabi cultural paradigm that you have never allowed yourself to leave. How accurate will you be on judging people's realities once we take you from the level of the student of knowledge to the level of the teacher, and after a couple of years to the level of the one who issues a fatwa? You need to know people's reality. Things in reality are much more complicated than the issue or the case of fiqh that you study in the book. And I'm not telling you to do any haram thing. I'm not telling you to do something that might be haram according to some people and halal according to others. I'm telling you, go read in other disciplines. It will widen your horizons so that you avoid being affected by the Wahhabi culture that is practiced by the majority of religious people, even though they do not belong to al-Wahhabi. This might be complicated. That's why I have the intention to talk about this and similar things, books and ideas, things that might help us think differently about the reality, while avoiding the Wahhabi way of thinking, while avoiding the Wahhabi, this thing that happens when you read it correctly and in your mind, because you know al-Wahhabiyya very well. This happens to me a lot in the dars. I know al-Wahhabi very well. In something that al-Wahhabiyya do not have a different opinion, or the relied upon Wahhabi position is not different from what we are explaining, I can imagine how a Wahhabi here or there will differ based on his rotten way of thinking. Please consider that I have never intended. I do not intend. I do not want to intend in the future. I do not want, and I have never intended addressing al-Wahhabi. I address Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, or people who are hesitant, but not al-Wahhabi. I'm not the person to address al-Wahhabi. So let me be as harsh as I want to be, because my harshness is justified. And I do not do it without backing up what I'm doing with evidence, at least in my head. And remember that عدم الوجدان ليس دليلا على عدم الوجود. Not finding something is not evidence that it doesn't exist. This is all this to say that I want to dedicate But in order not to bother the YouTube admin with me, stop asking about al-Wahhabiyya, Maulana. Are they closer to those, or are they different from هؤلاء? Al-Wahhabiyya al-Mubtadi'a. خلاص, and do not talk about the kufr of anyone. We are not going to call them kuffar. خلاص, but certain acts and certain beliefs that you find in the Wahhabi books and the Wahhabi practices are definitely of kufr. But they are not kuffar unless you bring Zayd and Amr, specific people, and keep asking them all types of questions to make sure after that there is a qualified qadi who calls them kuffar. In order not to bother the admin of the YouTube channel, Sheikh Al-Fadil and the other admins, Facebook, let's do this on Instagram. I was taught how to do this on Instagram in a very simple way. And it will be less formal, and by formal I mean less traditional. I will be discussing ideas, books, I will recommend things, I will try, based on some people's requests, I will try to help you with this. If you can, go ahead. If this is your study, if you study law, if you study sociology, if you study history, if you study literature, if you study I'm talking about humanities, but even if you study physics, yes, but let's see interdisciplinary studies. If you study physics, if you study chemistry, something that approaches the same topic but from a different perspective, literary perspective, psychological perspective. It depends on what you are interested in, and it's just something that you do as tarweeh in your free time, so that you avoid this way of thinking that affects me in the dars, affects you in the dars, violates a lot of traditions in the durus, in the YouTube sessions, وهكذا. خلاص. I am trying to swim against the current, to walk against the grain, and to read in things differently, not to innovate, but I'm talking about how people practice these things nowadays. خلاص. And I have different purposes. If you think that you share some of these purposes that I have, then I am the suitable person for you, at least on this. In al-ilm is simpler from this perspective. You will attend the dars, I will explain something, there is a protocol that I follow, you have also to follow the same protocol, and you will understand eventually what I said, or you will understand the book, and that's it. Lakin, what I'm talking about right now, what I intend to do on Instagram, خلاص, and my Instagram, and if you know me well, you know that this is not to become famous or anything. On the contrary, my Instagram is restricted, is private, and there are a lot of people whom I know, but I do not know who they are on Instagram, so I do not allow them in. It's just a trial to do something about what I have seen, what I have observed, to see whether it fixes this problem or not, and at the same time to share ideas that might benefit us in our journey of seeking al-ilm. Now, I talked about these 4 things in this live session, and I exceeded the time. My apologies, ya Maulana Sheikh, Sheikh Naveed. My apologies, I kept you all that. I'm going to finish now, but I need to quickly read the questions of the Fudala who shared their questions with us, and then we can end this live session, inshallah. طيب. I'm not I have options here, but I'm not sure which one to choose. I chose to see all the طيب. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته جميعا. طيب, here is a benefit, fiqhi benefit, Hanbali fiqhi benefit. The ideal salam that you give as a Hanbali to a Hanbali or as a Hanbali to anyone is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah without saying wa barakatuh. So that you allow him to have the choice whether to meet your salam, to say wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, or to increase wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If he increases, he gets more reward. This is the relied upon position of our madhab. Yes? If he doesn't, then he met your salam and you got the reward and he got the reward. But if you say alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, you are forcing him. You are giving him no chance, but to meet your salam with the equivalent. صح? This is the philosophy of the Hanbali fiqh in this issue. I have seen this happening a lot. It's just always good to remind يعني فإنها تنفع المؤمنين وأنتم إن شاء الله مؤمنون وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. I recommend the sharh of أخصر. A written sharh. I do not recommend أخصر مختصرات anymore. I recommend عمدة الطالب as an alternative. Yes? If so, we have a dars on عمدة الطالب. If you want a written, شرح الشيخ ابن قائد النجدي is a very good sharh, but some details requires a higher student or sheikh to explain them. جزاكم الله خير. الله يحفظكم يا فضيلة الشيخ. شرح ابن تيمية كتاب الإيمان by a contemporary scholar. يا مولانا الفاضل, your name is not visible or it's not F. يا مولانا, يعني you've controlled every aspect of what you are requiring. يعني you sound to be omniscient. You know كتاب الإيمان and you chose it. You chose Ibn Taymiyyah and you chose that it has to be a contemporary scholar. Ya Maulana, the only thing that is left to be done is that you choose my next meal. Why do you want me to answer this question? I'm not even angry. I'm just showing you my way of thinking. Ya akhi, if you come from the countries of the center, if you're not from the countries that are, if you're not from the others, خلاص, first world country, يعني tolerate the different way of thinking, my different way of thinking. You determined everything. It's just you can tell me now what to drink next and what to eat next. You want Ibn Taymiyyah, you choose Ibn Taymiyyah. You choose Ibn Taymiyyah's Book of Al-Iman. You do not want any sharh, you want a contemporary sharh. طب contemporary like the last 100 years, last 200 years. لا, يعني you have your own criteria. If you can determine everything like this, you do not need me to tell you what to do. You can do it. You are omniscient. You see? Mm-hmm. Do you believe Al-Wahhabiyya resulted in a net benefit or a net damage to the Ummah? لا يا أخي طبعا الوهابية is a huge damage. يا أخي الكريم, يا أخي الكريم, الوهابية do not benefit the Ummah in any way, because if you think that Al-Wahhabiyya benefited the Ummah, you are being, this is my opinion, you are being Machiavellian. You just see the result, what happened at the end. A lot of people became Muslims. A lot of people were drinking al-khamr and they stopped. A lot of women wore al-hijab. Ya akhi al-kareem, if you belong to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, you understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the real doer of things. صح? And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses al-fasiq to make his religion victorious. لا. If you want to evaluate the Wahhabiyya, let's talk about the Wahhabi philosophy, not the results. What is the Wahhabi philosophy? طبعا the word philosophy is a word that I respect. But once I say the Wahhabi philosophy, I feel not important what I feel. لا بأس يا مولانا الشيخ. طبعا الوهابية damaged the Ummah. يعني there is no benefit in the Wahhabi. Are not born into Wahhabiyya, they have accepted the Athariya based on research and love of Tawheed by rejecting that. يا أخي الكريم, يا أخي الكريم, تقليد is a necessity. لا بأس يا مولانا. ما هذا يا شيخ is closer to kufr than the likes of al-Rafida. Stop these questions يا مشايخ. I do not know who is closer to al-kufr. خلاص. I do not call anyone kafir unless they are clearly a kafir, and now we are talking about individuals, not the masses. And we've explained this. Are certain elements of Wahhabi culture influenced? This is a good question. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Are certain elements of Wahhabi culture influenced by Western individualism? Influenced, or like they have intertextual links? I'm not sure. طيب, maybe الوهابية, not maybe, يعني there are documents that prove it. Are الوهابية the result of a Western way of thinking, or Western philosophy like individualism, or other Western philosophies that contradict with Islam and its teachings? Definitely. This is what we might need to look into. I have, for instance, a book that I need to discuss with people, but it will never be a dars. This book is called, I will show you and we can discuss it later. This is called Al-Wahhabiyya, according to the reports of the French Council or the French Embassy in Baghdad. Yes. So, documents from 1806 to 1808, according to the French Embassy. So it shows you how they perceive al-Wahhabi, how they like the idea of al-Wahhabi, how they consider and call Ibn Abd al-Wahhab قرن الشيطان عليه من الله ما يستحق, a new prophet. Al-Wahhabiyya, they have this, يعني يا شيخ Naveed, if you can hear me, you see the comments that are bothering me. I do not tolerate these comments. So if you see something if you see something like that, يعني hide it and let's avoid these discussions. The Wahhabi will always say, look at those French kuffar who accuses Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. He never said that he was a prophet. Ya akhi, this is not the important thing. Khalas, kuffar and liars. We do not even believe them. Do you think that I believe the report of a kafir? But what happened is that they said Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is a new prophet. The important question is why? What happened? And it might lead us nowhere. But let's analyze why. The Wahhabi is too stupid to ask the question why. Now, you don't ask questions about Wahhabiyya, but you yourself keep referencing them. Yes. I'm telling my viewers to stop asking about things that I'm not going to talk about. I'm a dictator. Yes. Certain elements of Wahhabiyya. We've read this. Wa alaykum salam ya Sheikh Jum. Hafizakumullah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Can لا, do not add وَمَغْفِرَتُهُ because it has never been in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So وَمَغْفِرَتُهُ, and these ahadith are not really authentic. And consider the amal of al-fuqaha. The amal of al-fuqaha, especially in our mazhab, they do not see it as sunnah. Have answered the tasalsul hawadis of Ibn Sina, rahimahullah. Definitions of modal terms as well as Ibn Taymiyyah's argument from infinite. يا أخي الكريم الفاضل يا مولانا, الحنابلة do not answer in any كلامي manner. الحنابلة just say كلام الله قديم صفاته قديمة, and they do not add anything to this. So الحنابلة will not be involved with any كلامي discussion. This is a very short answer. I can tell you more, but this will be the conclusion. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. Studying the Arabic language, I do not really know how to answer this question of the Arabic language, about books But I want you, Ya Aba al-Arqam, to know a very important thing, that whatever you are doing to study the Arabic language, you will have at some point with your teacher. I hope one day we can offer something in the madrasa that helps us establish this concept of learning the Arabic language for ilmi purposes, so that when you attend my dars in Arabic, you understand my language. Not it's not enough that you watch the TV or the news on TV in Arabic and you understand them. This is not enough. What we need is that you attend the dars in which the scholar speaks in the traditional language of al-ilm, in an Arabic language, according to the traditional Arabic language of al-ilm. If you understand what I mean. In English, we teach English for academic purposes, and we teach English for business purposes, وهكذا. So this is the same concept, Arabic for this ilm purposes. This is the only thing that I can tell you about learning the Arabic language. I do not know how to recommend a book like this. This is not my field. A book in the Arabic language or so. Thoughts about the misinterpretation of the hadith about the Najdi fitna. That Najd was Iraqi. Wallahi, this is your opinion, ya Sheikh. Najd in Iraq. Khalas. This is just your opinion. Actually, this is your understanding. And please do not force things. And do not keep saying things like, as we know, you know, I do not know what you know. Khalas. And the Najdi fitna, there is a good chance that the Prophet ﷺ meant Qarn al-Shaytan, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Now, خلاص. طب if he didn't mean it, you consider it a misinterpretation and you want me to answer? There is a chance that it's misinterpretation, there is a chance that it's not. Is this a good way of thinking? I know that it's not. Yani I know that probably it's not, but this language of probably is not something that you understand. You know why? Because you are determined. This is the characteristics, these are the characteristics of a person who didn't study al-ilm. You are determined. I know that there is a misunderstanding. Ya akhi, say there is a possibility. You know that other scholars said that Muhammad ibn Abdullah is the man who is meant by this hadith. I understand that this can be doubted. Najd in Iraq. What is this? You had the map in which the borders were drawn by you and your friends. If anyone asks himself why I don't go live on YouTube, it's because of this. I didn't even get the chance to see the person who said so. It's just a typical thing that you see on YouTube. That's why I am in my khalwa, in my durus on Zoom. It's not even khalwa يعني. لا يا أخي الكريم. استغفر الله العظيم. Let's خلاص. This is enough. Let's not answer any other questions. أحسن كتاب لأدب الطالب مع شيخه زاك يا مولانا الفاضل. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. يا مولانا الفاضل، تذكرة السامع والمتكلم لشيخ الإسلام قاضي القضاة بدر الدين محمد بن جماعة رحمه الله. A great book, teaches you يعني the question is in Arabic. Let me answer in English I'm not sure if he understands in English. هناك كتاب نافع يا مولانا الفاضل، وهو كتاب تذكرة السامع والمتكلم في أدب العالم والمتعلم لشيخ الإسلام بدر الدين محمد بن جماعة الشافعي رحمه الله ورضي عنه. يعلمك آداب الطالب مع الشيخ وآداب الشيخ مع الطالب، ويعلمك ما نسميه الآن بروتوكولا، يعني قائمة أو مجموعة من الآداب والإجراءات التي ينبغي للطالب أن يعتد بها حال معاملته شيخه، وللشيخ أن يعتد بها حال معاملته طلابه ودرسه، بل ومدرسته والطلاب، وكيف يعامل الطالب أخاه، يعني أقرانه من طلاب العلم، وكيف يعامل الطلاب مدرستهم، وهكذا. كتاب جامع إمام في بابه، كتاب عظيم. مم. طيب. آه وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. مم. The Zoom link of what, I'm not sure. In the دروس in general, just message the. نعم. مهم. طيب، بارك الله فيكم، جزاكم الله خيرا، ونلقاكم على خير إن شاء الله. see you إن شاء الله، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.